Oh. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Honest Hour. We are back again with another good episode here lined up. My guest tonight is a woman I've just met. We've become friends very vastly. Um, she is an artist in her own right, singer songwriter, but we won't be talking about that tonight. We'll be talking about that at a later date when we are in person. But as she's also a speaker on behalf of Seize the Cure. She is big on epilepsy. Tonight is and we have an event that I'm honored to be a part of. Seize the Cure. If you can see, it's right behind her. Tonight, my guest is TJ Vita. How are you tonight?
I am blessed. I am blessed. I'm blessed to be here. I'm blessed to be alive.
Okay.
I'm a bit tired. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
But
I'm sure.
it is what it is. That's part of life, especially when you're working for something you're passionate about. One of the biggest investments that you have to give is your energy and your time and your sleep. So,
lot, lot,
so
a lot to take in at one time,
yes,
right?
I mean, I have issues sleeping as it is, but
Mhm.
it's been, it's interesting. It's kind of like my brain is running while I'm sleeping. I am sleeping though. I think I'm so exhausted from managing life and doing what I'm doing with Seize the Cure with this event coming up
Right.
that it's just so much going on that I'm exhausted. By the time my head hits the pillow and I pass out, I pass out.
Oh, you're out. Like not
Yes, but
even
while
yeah.
I wake up in the middle of the night for a quick, a hot second, I wake up and I'm thinking in my brain what I have to do when I wake up,
Mm-hmm.
for the event. So,
Absolutely.
but I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be here. It's Saturday. It's a nice long weekend. At least for
Yeah.
me, it is. Some people are working, so it doesn't make much of an effect for them. But I'm blessed.
Listen, that's what we're about. Okay. I shared those. I shared both on Facebook
Yes,
as
thank you.
well. And I shared the Instagram link on Facebook because for some reason Instagram's just deciding to give me a hard time today.
Oh, so they're piggybacking off of Facebook.
Yeah, but I shared it the Instagram link on
Right.
Facebook. I tagged you in both so
Okay.
that anyone who can tap in and see it.
Okay. Perfect.
So I want to know, um, there's a lot with this event, and I guess I should start at more so the beginning
Okay.
of said event, or
Mhm.
even like the history that led to this. But a little bit lightly about you. I know you reside in Florida now, but you're originally from the Bronx.
I'm still in the Bronx in my heart. I moved to Florida. What is it? It's been 3.5 years, going on 4,
Okay.
and I've traveled to the Bronx 7 or 8 times. I would say 8 times in those years. Um, Mostly for Seize the Cure.
Okay.
Um, and as long as I've been out here, everywhere I go, when people hear me speak, they automatically know I'm from New York, and they can even guess that I'm from the Bronx. So it's really interesting. I haven't picked up that Southern accent, or it is. I still haven't adjusted out here, and I've been asked if I was going to do C Secure out here. The most I've done is I've done a workshop or a program, should I say, in one of the schools out here where I took 3 days going to each class, middle and high school, to
Okay.
do an epilepsy awareness and seizure safety workshop, and spoke to the whole student body about it. That's the most I've done, and that's probably the most I'm gonna do. If it's for the schools, I will do it. I don't care what state or continent I'm in. But if it's anything to do with events, I'm sticking to my home, the
Right.
Bronx. It's where my heart is. It's where I didn't realize that till I left, though. To be honest with you,
Wow.
yeah, I started. I started Seize the Cure let me backtrack a second. I started spreading epilepsy awareness with my first event being in the Parkchester area of the Bronx. And that was in 2017. I had absolutely no intention of doing anything past a one-time event. I did it because I'm in music. I'm a recording artist. I sing pop. I sing R&B. I write my own music. So being in the industry, I wanted to connect my personal experience with epilepsy. I wanted to connect it to my artistry. And of course, I know a lot of artists. So I figured, let me do an event. At that time, I was struggling with my son, who was recently diagnosed with epilepsy, and he was struggling with having convulsions, seizures, grand mal seizures. For those who don't know, those are convulsions. Those are the ones that you drop to the floor, your eyes roll behind your head, you may vomit or foam at the mouth, you're completely unconscious, violent shaking. So he was having a lot of them that were just it was very recent for us, very recent. Ironically, for that first event, he was in the hospital after the event was already planned. It was not a big event. It maybe had, I would say, 60 people off the top of my head, but it was something new. It was my first time. And I had reached out to the Epilepsy Foundation of New York, Metropolitan New York, and the director answered the phone. And I said, I know you don't know me or you have no reason to invest any time into what I want to present to you, but I'm a mother. I have epilepsy myself, but I'm very well controlled. I haven't had a convulsion in many, many, many years. My seizures are more the absence seizures. And for those who don't know, that's more of it looks like spacing out. The difference between daydreaming and what looks like daydreaming and what an actual petit mal seizure is, the best way I could explain it is the person is standing up, eyes open, but they're completely unconscious. So it's not like someone daydreaming, because people confuse this. It's not someone daydreaming where you could say, snap out of it. Yeah, you can't do that with someone who is having a petit mal seizure or absence seizure, they might call it. They cannot hear anything you're saying. They cannot recollect anything once they come out of it, but they're standing and they look completely normal, but their eyes are completely frozen. So those are more of the type of seizures that I've had my whole life. Did I take it seriously? Absolutely not. And the reason I took it seriously in 2017 was because not only was my son in a more sensitive situation, he was having convulsions, but when it's your child,
it's different.
It hits different. I can't, I did that event thinking it would be one time. And that was it. It was a fairly decent event. We had some performances. I think I had one bank that came out. I couldn't really get anybody to come out because nobody knew who I was. Right. And I remember everyone that made that event possible all donated. Everything from the food to setting up, the place was donated. Shout out to Shake from Peace December. He was the first one to give me the platform to be able to even do an event. I had a number of speakers that had epilepsy that spoke about it. But again, no intention. And this is how you know God's plan. Usually not your plan. No. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so big on my spiritual growth, because I've learned so much to stop trying to figure everything out and just let God place things where he wants, because it's always those unexpected things. And this was one of them. Moving forward, throughout the years, we're now in 2025. I've had a very good relationship with the Epilepsy Foundation. I've had about 9 events. This is the 10th one I'll be having this June. And I have been through so much in those years with my son.
Right.
that it brought me what I was bringing to my events. Everything that I learned with him in trial and error, because unfortunately, that's how life works with parenting, especially when you're dealing with a life-threatening condition and a life-changing condition. I had to learn everything along the way. And every time I had an event, it made me think, this is what I want to talk about, or this is who I want to look for to represent what I'm dealing with,
Absolutely.
or this is what I want to offer to the community to know what's out there for them. And my mission would always change up. And that's okay.
Right.
Okay. You know how it is when you're starting a business. The first thing they'll tell you is your mission statement has to be the same. No, that's BS. It does not have to stay the same, because the biggest life teacher is experience. And experience changes along the way.
Absolutely.
So I could tell you the challenges I went through with my son in 2017 is not the same as the challenges that I experienced 2 years ago, or last year, and now this year. So Seize the Cure has become a non-for-profit organization, and the beautiful thing, it officially became a non-for-profit last year, right after I flew home from the last event.
Okay.
So I came home ecstatic about that. Why I was ecstatic, it was just it was a feeling of accomplishment, you know. We are having this event in June 28th, which is a Saturday, and it's going to be from 1 to 6. Plan to be there all those hours. We have performances. We have testimonial speakers. Shout out to Mike Williams, because let me tell you, I just met you and you have shown so much support to this. And it's a beautiful thing, because I've met so many great people along the way, and Absolutely. I've learned so much from them. And when you get support from people that have had experience with it but have never spoke about it, that to me is the biggest accomplishment.
Absolutely.
People come to my events and they didn't even realize that what they were learning about was something that was going on within their own family. Right. Or they knew someone who had it but didn't really understand it to the capacity that they learned it from the event. That's a huge accomplishment. When I have someone tell me at the end of an event, and every event I've had this, where they come up to me and say, I've learned so much and I never wanted to speak about this. I've been struggling with this for a long time. Right. I would like to speak at your next event. I don't turn people away when it comes to that kind of inspiration.
As you shouldn't.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not going to lie, because I only have room to fit for so many. Right. I had people, the last event in 2024, I had 2 people that wanted to speak that have never spoke before. I gave up my performance spot. So wow. Because that's what this is about. This is not about TJ Vita. This is not about getting out there music wise. I have performances because I believe in music. Music is therapy. And I appreciate the performers that want to support something that I'm doing that they know for a fact I've struggled with. I didn't just wake up and choose a cause out of a hat and say, you know, let me see, I'm going to do breast cancer this month, or I'm going to do like a different, you know, something different next year. No, I'm doing something that everybody saw me post about while I was going through it before I even touched doing an event about it.
Oh, wow. And, you know, I think that for me, it's funny because I don't think I've told you this. I actually saved it for this moment in time. I was going to tell you this the other day, but I figured it'd be more organic to say it now. Mm-hmm. So this podcast started last year, 2024, February 29th was the first episode. And I've seen its growth. Originally, it was placated for people locally to have a platform. But I didn't want it. But then people started seeing it, and it started to branch out. So you came up, and people that you may know, 5 mutual friends. Mm-hmm. And I was looking in the mutual friends were people who were kind of around this same industry that I'm in here. So I'm like, okay. So I click on the page, and the first thing I seen was Seize the Cure. It's the first thing that popped up. So to me, I was like, I'm gonna send a friend request. That's something I would like to actually know. I seen the event. I actually wanted to know more about the event. So, and that's really how it all started. Like, was just a simple request became a friendship in a sense. And, I think it's beautiful because it's not something like I've dealt with this like for years. I haven't had any type of seizure since I was 12. That was the last time I've had one. And I think that there isn't any awareness for this. And there's nowhere for people to speak about it. It's not something that's covered. It's not something you see every year, like breast cancer, or that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head right now. But it's not. Or now we have Mental Health Month. It's not something you see every year.
Right.
So for you to create a platform for people with this condition to go and speak, get knowledge, but to also have a good time, listen to some performances, get some food, visit some vendors, and to really do that is something that's commendable. My hat is off to you, because I can tell you, I be trying to plan events, and then I'm not even gonna lie, I start working on it and I get stressed. Like, it is a lot of work, a lot of checking, a lot of P's and Q's, a lot of this, a lot of that. A whole bunch of shit goes wrong, and then you got to figure out on the fly how to navigate it. And even when you get to that day, shit is gonna go wrong. Like, there's no fixing it. There's no stopping it. Like, it's going to happen. So I have to say that this is commendable, and an event I'm proud to be a part of as media coverage. I got my camera guy coming with me, to be speaking. We're going to put together a video for the event and things like that. So I thank you for allowing me to bring my platform, as well as take a moment. I think you said I get 3 minutes. I'm a talker, so hopefully I can sum it up in that amount of time. So,
yeah, you got 3 minutes. You say 3 minutes, but there's usually with you gotta, how do I say this? And it's starting, with our urban community, so to speak, especially our Latinos and African Americans, we gotta give a certain amount of time, but there's always that little extra 2 minutes. We just can't say that.
Okay, all right. 5 I can work with. 5, all right. 5 I can work with. 5 I can do.
I can't say 5 minutes. And if I say 5 minutes,
it becomes 7 minutes.
It becomes right. And I can't do that, because the one thing I never want, and I'm not talking about you at this point. I remember there was one event that I had told someone 5 minutes, and they just kept going. And I'm like, the last thing I want to do is say stop or cut the mic,
Or play music like it's the Grammys.
Yeah. But I'm like, there's a lot going on. And you said, what you just said is so true. The stress. I don't complain, because when I promised to do something like this, or made the decision to do this, when I make a decision to do something, I look at the pros and the cons and what comes with it.
Right.
Ask myself, can I really do this? And I say, can I? Not that I don't have the ability or the potential to do it. It's that I am managing being a mother. I am managing taking care of a household. I am managing my son's condition is still what it is while this is happening.
Right.
People forget that, because I don't go posting on Facebook every time he has a seizure.
Right.
They forget that. They're thinking, oh, he's cured, or he must be doing great. He is doing great. You know why I say that? Because it could always be worse.
Absolutely.
I've met people who are we have one speaker coming and performing. He was at one point having 100 seizures a day.
Woo.
For a whole year. He had and you know what? You know how he got his head injury? He went into the fridge, and you know when you come up too fast before you exit out the fridge?
Yeah.
Banged his head and ended up having seizures severely, to the point that he was in the hospital for a whole year with this.
Wow.
So seizure cure is not just about epilepsy anymore.
Right.
And this is why I said the mission changes, because now I'm looking at everything I've been through with my son. I'm looking at some cases with law enforcement where they're not trained in seizure safety. They're not trained in what seizures even look like. And they're mishandling the person that actually has. There was one case recently where the person was tased and they are epileptic.
Oh boy.
And what they thought was the woman being violent
Was a
and
seizure.
defiant was actually a seizure. There are over 40 different types of seizures. So it had me thinking about law enforcement. It had me thinking about how our children in our schools, especially in our urban community, are being misdiagnosed, or they're not being sent to neurologists to make sure there's nothing medical going on, but they're very quick to be labeled with ADHD. Okay. Now, the symptoms of seizures, absent seizures, are very similar to ADD, which does not exist anymore as a diagnosis. So before, back in the days, you had a child with ADD and then you had a child with ADHD. What was the difference? The child with ADHD was more impulsive and was hyperactive. Now they took away the ADD.
Yeah.
Now, if your child is not hyper, they're still being labeled with ADHD. Not being sent to a neurologist. You know, if we're adults, okay,
right.
And you know, at a certain age, we start getting our risk for all these issues, medical conditions, start to go through the roof. Okay, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, risk of stroke. Okay, everything goes up. But now, if you're struggling with, let's say, you're struggling with a constant headache, are you gonna go to a GYN to get checked?
No.
And my point is, with our children, they're not being sent to get checked for things that would affect how they learn, would affect their behavior, would affect their memory, would affect their mental health. So what's happening is they're being labeled by the schools. And we have an epidemic of kids who are misdiagnosed. And this isn't even just about epilepsy. There's many neurological conditions that mimic the same symptoms of a child with, let's say, ADHD or behavioral issues, or, you know, a learning disability, so to speak. Now, seizures are not just, they don't just happen because you have epilepsy. You have people that do not have epilepsy that have seizures. Okay, what are some of those reasons? High temperatures, pregnancy, medications for other conditions, psychiatric medication. Here's a double whammy for those who don't know. Psych meds cause seizures. Seizure meds cause psychiatric issues.
Yeah,
they clash big time. Okay, which is why majority of people with epilepsy who are under medication have some kind of mental health disorder. Depression is a major one. Okay. So many different things. Drug use. Drug withdrawal. Okay. Alcohol. I did a program in the school recently in Florida, and I had a student, a sixth grader, ask me, "Can you die from a seizure?" I said, "Yes, you absolutely can." He said, "So if you try drugs one time, can you have a seizure and die from the seizure?" I said, "Yes,
absolutely.
All it takes is one time." So what's the lesson in that? Just say no.
Yeah.
You know,
And it doesn't even have to be drugs. Another thing that really makes this hit differently for me is 2020. My best friend, he was at work. Um, he went to work, normal day. He had a seizure at work, and then he later on died. Healthy guy, didn't smoke, didn't, well, I mean, drank, but
Right.
socially more than anything else. Well, no, well, I mean, some weed here and there, but whatever, but it wasn't like a constant all the time, But overall, a healthy guy. He was a rapper. He had been on TV, been on the radio, had done a lot of things, and he just had a seizure, and then he died. But later on, I found out some of the details. And for those who don't know, if you have a seizure, do not go to sleep. No matter how tired you feel, do not go to sleep. From my understanding, he told the job he was going to take a nap. He took a nap. He got up. He was feeling weird. Then they called 911 and it was too late. Had they have just called 911 from the get-go, more than likely, in my opinion, as someone who had been through this, he would have still been here. It's just having the knowledge. And a lot of people don't have the knowledge. A lot of people who have not been through this don't understand. And like for me, you're going to find this a little weird, but this is the truth. So the generation, my seizure disorder, I was never diagnosed epileptic, but I had a seizure disorder growing up. So it started with my great grandfather. He was his father's second child. Went to my grandfather, which was his father's second child, to my father, who was my grandfather's second child, to me, who I'm my father's second child, to my daughter, my second daughter. So 5 generations this has happened. So I'm curious, when my daughter has kids, my second daughter, if she has a second child, will the same thing happen to her, to them?
So it's a pattern in your family.
Yes.
Which could be explained by hereditary. It's interesting because you mentioned, let me address that one. I've had the question of, is it hereditary? And in some cases it definitely is, especially when you're seeing the pattern of, like you said, the second child.
Right.
So let me make sure I'm understanding correctly before I continue. Your second daughter has it?
Yes, my second daughter, she doesn't have them anymore, but when she was smaller, she did. My older daughter had a couple here and there, and I think my youngest had one. But my middle daughter, she definitely took the brunt. Like there was a day where she had 8 in a row.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's dangerous. See, my dad had it, but my dad got it from a motorcycle accident. It wasn't like he was born with it. So there's a big question in my situation whether it's hereditary, because I went for genetic testing with my son to find out. And the gene that is for epilepsy that he had wasn't in connection to me. I didn't have that same gene. But it showed up that his father's side had it, which his father doesn't have it. So it's kind of weird. I don't know the science behind that. I obviously don't care to know, to be honest with you, because my whole thing at that time was I just want to find out what's wrong and how can we get this managed. You said something that is so vital, which is a part of the mission of what I'm doing. People do not know. There's a lot of history behind epilepsy. Epilepsy was not even recognized as a neurological condition or a medical condition until recent. And when I say recent, probably a few generations before us, which is not a long time. In the beginning, when seizures were first starting, it was looked at in the spiritual world as a possession of the devil. And how they treated seizures was through exorcism.
Wow.
Very interesting. Then the world of psychology started to come into play. And then in the world of psychology, it started to be looked at as schizophrenia, which when you look at the history of schizophrenia had a old time belief of the devil as well.
Right.
Because of the hallucinations and the delusions. So it wasn't recognized until recently as a neurological condition, because now the world of medicine is so advanced, and it's a very bittersweet thing. I mean, that's probably a whole nother show to get into with the politics. Don't get me started on that one, but a lot of people do not know what to do when someone's having a seizure. They don't even know what a seizure looks like. Now, I'm going to say something, and I'm not embarrassed to say this, because I just pretty much said I have epilepsy. I've had convulsions in the past, but I've never actually seen a convulsion until my son came home from the hospital. He was on a new medication, and I remember I was cooking spaghetti, and he was on the couch with his sister, and his sister kept cracking up, just laughing. And I looked at him, and I see him doing this, like making the choking noise.
Oh, so she's thinking he's like playing a game.
I thought he was playing around.
Right.
And I look at him, and I'm like, cut it out, Malik. I go back to cooking. Like nothing. Like I really didn't know.
Right. You didn't put two and two.
And then I go back and I see him. He's still doing it. I said, all right, Malik, enough. Your sister's about to pee on herself. Just stop making her laugh.
Right.
And then when I look and he wasn't stopping, I started to yell at him. But then when I went up to him, you know, as parents, when you go up to your child to scold them in their face, I go up to him, and that's when I noticed something was very wrong. So now I have my phone literally in my hand. And as I have my phone in my hand, I'm running through the house looking for a phone to call 911. So panic is a real thing when you don't know. Now, if I would have known what a seizure looked like, if I would have known, you know, what to do or what I was looking at, I still would have been nervous because it's my child. But I don't think I would have panicked the way I did. Right. Because when someone has a seizure, it's like time is lost. Their time is lost. Your time is completely frozen.
Right.
And I had the phone in my hand, and I'm looking through the house, looking for a phone. By the grace of God, my neighbor heard me screaming. And at that time, it was a man with his 3 sons. He heard me screaming. And my door happened to be open because my son's father had just left from dropping him off from the hospital.
Right.
And he opened the door. And when he saw what was going on, he called 911 and he stayed to help out.
Oh,
wow. I did not know that one seizure was going to lead into what is now over 400 convulsions that my son has had. Now, my son just turned 22. So if you're looking at from the years of 13 years old to 22, that's a short gap to have over 400 seizures, convulsions.
Absolutely.
What happens to the brain during one seizure can go into a spiral effect. So I'm blessed because he's here. I'm blessed because he is doing better with stability, but we still have those occurrences that still happen. And
absolutely
perfect. You know what? This was the devil. I'm about to go spiritual again. This was the devil trying to block me from doing this. Let me tell you how real it is. In March, I don't know if you remember, but in March, I did a Seize the Cure tour. And what that is I went to the Bronx and I went to 6 different organizations where I presented epilepsy and seizure safety awareness.
Yeah, I was trying to make that first one in Spring Valley, but the The timing just
the
didn't
timing,
work.
Yeah. That's fine because it worked now. You know, there's always a way. So I went out there for a whole week. It was great. I mean, I met so many people. I taught so many people. I learned that there's a lot of people that still think to put a spoon in the mouth when someone's having a seizure. And I thought that who still thinks this, but people still think it because they just don't know. When I came back on the flight, I get off the flight. That Saturday, I think it was. Yes, it was a Saturday, the 21st. I got off the plane. And you know, when your phone starts going off after the reception comes back?
Yeah.
My son had a seizure and was rushed to the hospital. And they couldn't reach me because I was on the plane.
Oh, boy.
Luckily, they got in contact with his dad. They must have went through his phone to find out who they could contact. They got in contact with his dad, who is in New York, mind you. And he knew I was on the plane. So he knew that I would get the text when I came off the plane. But he contacted my mom, and my mom and her husband went to go get him at the hospital. And thankfully, he was okay. You know how bad I felt that I couldn't be reached. Because, you know, I'm super mom. I'm supposed to, you know, have everything together, you know, right. And I am a perfectionist. So it's like with my kids, it's like if I'm the last to know something happened, I feel like I failed at something. But that was the devil trying to stop something because ironically, it happened at a point that I couldn't be reached. And then that whole week was just a disaster. It was one disaster. It started with that, but then my dog died that week, and there was other stuff going on. Yeah, that week was just really bad. And the minute I landed in Florida, I don't know if that's some kind of sign. If that's a whole nother story for another day, because I already have my feelings on that. But I say this because there was a time that I wasn't going to do this.
Right.
From 2017 to 2020, I did events. I was acknowledged by the Epilepsy Foundation to represent the Bronx in epilepsy and seizure safety awareness. Awesome. And that was a blessing. You know, at that point, I didn't know I was moving yet. But then in 2020, I was supposed to have an event in a school, and I presented Seize the Cure to the director of the after school program. And she had no idea what epilepsy was. She never knew what seizures are. She's heard of them. But she said, this is how crazy this is going to sound. She says, I don't know what this is, but I like what you're presenting. And I think the parents should know about it. So I would like you to come present to the parents. So it went from a presentation to the after school parents to now a presentation to the whole school. It was booked for March 18th. That was the week that schools got shut down from COVID.
Yeah.
So, no big deal. I'm thinking, we'll just reschedule it. You know, how long is school's going to be closed? Well,
we know how that turned out.
Unfortunately, the schools continued to be closed, what seemed like forever. And at that point, I said, you know what? I was having some personal issues. And I said, you know what? I got to get out of here and leave and start my life over. So I moved in September of that year. Very impulsive. I always wanted to move to Florida, and that was my goal. That was my plan. Mm-hmm. But I had to move a lot faster than I expected due to this personal issue I was having. And because I picked up and came to Florida with absolutely nothing, I left my furniture. I just left.
She just said, I'm starting all the way over.
Right. But with that, you know, doing something like that while going through the heartache that I was dealing with, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. It was the best thing I did. But at that time, it was the hardest thing I had to do. I wasn't thinking about doing Seize the Cure anymore. It was kind of like, you know what? This is something to leave behind. So 6 months into moving here, I got a call from the Epilepsy Foundation, and he said, listen, I know there's some sponsors that would like to, see what you're about. They're trying to work with someone that could represent the Bronx and still do stuff. And I'm like, are there other people that they're talking to? He's yes, but I would like just talk to them. Just show them what you're about.
Right.
So I did the presentation. Again, I still did not think anything was going to come out of it.
Right. You just went with it.
Right. This was in June. Now, December, I get a call from the woman who was the director for the after school program.
Yeah.
And I missed the call. And 2 weeks later, I heard her voicemail. And she was crying on the voicemail saying that God brought me into her life for a reason. And she just didn't know at that time. But her son was very sick. He was diagnosed with epilepsy and his seizures were out of control. She was like, I don't know if you're still doing what you do, but can you help me? And I got, every time I tell that story, I get goosebumps to this day. I started crying and I called her and I'm like, I wasn't going to do this. She was like, please do it and I will stand by you.
Wow.
Right after that call, the Epilepsy Foundation calls me and tells me, they chose you to do events. Can you commit to 2 or 3 a year? And I'm like, I'm just curious. Why did they choose me?
Right.
He said, they like that you're very genuine and very upfront. You don't sugarcoat things. Not everybody can deal with that.
No, not
everybody can deal with that. But I said something that struck them because I have this model where it's, if I have an event with 500 people and I reached one person, I did my job. Screw what everybody else think. If you didn't like it, if you thought it was a waste of time, more power to you. Don't come next time.
Exactly.
But if I reached one person, I did my job.
Exactly.
So that's what did it, which is what led into the event that I had last year, where I had major sponsors for the first time.
Wow. And
these major sponsors will be at this event as well.
Okay.
Off top of my head, we have Norellis, we have SK Life Science, we have UCB, we have the Epilepsy Foundation, of course. I know I'm missing. Catalyst, I believe, is one, and there's these are pharmaceutical labs, companies that are very big on epilepsy and seizure safety awareness. We have 2 doctors that are coming to speak again. Last event, they spoke about the 2 topics. I don't remember off the top of my head. But this particular event, I'm excited about these topics. First of all, we have from Montefiore Hospital, Dr. Duberstein, who's a pediatric neurologist.
Okay.
And he is going to be speaking along with Dr. Pack from New York Presbyterian. They're going to be speaking about puberty and pregnancy and how it affects epilepsy and seizure risk.
Oh, okay.
And then we also have another EMT that's coming out to speak about what to do when someone's having a seizure.
Wow.
I felt that was crucial because after doing the tour in March, where people really do not know what to do, number one, they don't know what a seizure looks like. They don't know what to do during the seizure, and they don't know what to do after a seizure. After a seizure is the most crucial time.
Yeah, it's the most critical part.
Knowing what to look for, and what you just said about not letting the person go to sleep. People don't know that because when someone has a seizure, they're exhausted.
Oh, it takes a lot out of you.
It takes a lot out of you. And in the first part of waking from a seizure, they usually don't know who you are. They don't know where they are. They don't know anything. So they may try to fight. My son has done that because he wasn't sure. He was trying to get up and I wouldn't let him get up. And then once they actually realize, they start to come back into reality, so to speak.
Yes.
When they want to sleep. And if you let them, they will.
and if you let them, they might not wake back up.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, what happens if you hit your head? What's the first thing they tell you? Don't let the person go to sleep.
Yep.
Any kind of head trauma, don't let them go to sleep. Well, guess what? During a seizure, they may have not actually hit their head. A lot of times they do, but they may have not hit their head, but their brain has just been through trauma.
Yep.
Okay. And if they're lucky if they didn't get any kind of injury during a seizure, the problem with convulsions are the injuries behind them and how long the seizure lasts. You know, they will tell you, wait till it's 5 minutes to call 911. Screw that. I was calling 911 within the first minute, because by the time 911 gets the call and then gets to the house, if I waited for it to be 5 minutes for them to answer the phone and put the call through to EMS, because the fire department is the one that shows up before EMS does.
Yeah.
By that time, we're looking at 7 minutes.
Gone.
And then what?
They're
So
gone.
exactly. So either you're gone or you can have serious brain damage, and which happens a lot too. The amount of seizures my son has had, there was some that I almost lost him. Okay. I've hurt myself. Now, my son is 6'1". There was a time when he was 6 feet and 240 pounds. Now, think of a guy that size and look at me. And when someone has a seizure, they literally are triple their weight in mass, because their muscles lock and it's forceful shaking. So I've gotten myself hurt trying to make sure he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Okay. And nobody was looking out for me. Nobody was telling me what I can do to protect myself. I mean, realistically, there's not much you can do except you're thinking about your child's safety. I wasn't thinking about me and my brittle bones. I was thinking about him not being hurt. And even though he did get hurt, I mean, there were times that I couldn't save him. There was a time he had a seizure in the tub, in the shower, and the knobs went through his stomach.
Ooh.
Yes. And he still has the scars. He's going to have those scars forever. There was a time, now, you know, I don't know how it is. You're upstate, right?
Yeah, I'm about an hour from the Bronx.
Yeah.
An hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, shout out to upstate, because this is the first event. I have a lot of support from upstate this time, and I love it. So there was a time that our apartments in the Bronx, the bathrooms are very small. And the door, you have to push in to open.
Okay.
Now, you would think when my son was diagnosed and his convulsion started, you would think somebody would have said, you know, make sure you get the door to where it can pull out. Or, you know, these are things to safeguard your house. Nobody told me that. Everything was just medication. Let's just try this. And I didn't know any better at that time to know what these seizures were going to bring. So he had a seizure and he fell out the tub and he was blocking the door. So I couldn't get to him.
Oh, boy.
So my natural reaction, I had an axe in the house. Don't ask me why I had an axe in the house. I just had an axe in the house. I'm not crazy. I just had an axe. I needed a weapon. So I grabbed it.
Talk about Bronx and Latina lingo. Not a knife, guys. Audience. Not a bat, not even a sledgehammer. An axe. She made sure she clarified she's not nuts.
No, I'm not nuts. I'm not. I've never used the axe. When I could have, I never did. So I took the axe and chopped the door to get to him.
Yeah.
So, you know, the management tried to give me a hard time and charging me for the door. And, you know, I like middle fingers to you, but you're not getting that. You know, what you need to do is give me a door that opens out, because you already know that there is a situation in this house.
Right.
I've sent all the documentation. I did not know that there were actual rights for you to be able to change the blueprint of your house to safeguard someone that has a serious medical condition, such as seizures, where their safety is at risk.
Right.
So they have to make these changes in order to make sure that person is safe. You have the proper documentation. You fill out the paperwork. I believe it's the American Disability Act. where they have to acknowledge that. Now, yes, you do have to go through a process like anything in life. I mean, who's going to give anything that simple to you?
No one.
But that's one thing that I didn't know was available to me. So part of Caesar Cure is I have actually been to people's homes to let them know what they can do to safeguard their house for the person that has seizures.
Mm.
And that's just because I feel it's selfish for me to have learned so much in my advocacy for my own child and to keep it to myself when it could potentially save somebody's life. I went through the whole disability thing. That's another thing that's still a struggle. I'm not going to lie. Disability looks at people with seizures like, well, if you could sit at a desk and work, you're okay to work. They don't realize that. Do you know the triggers for someone with seizures? One of them being electronics. And nowadays, sitting at a desk in front of a computer, it's not one computer you're sitting in front of. You're sitting in front of two or three.
Two or three.
Yes, at my job, I have 2 computers I have to deal with, which is it's not. I'm not gonna lie, it's a trigger for me and my headaches.
Yeah.
I still get my symptoms. I'm gonna have a seizure or I'm having some kind of activity going on, but I know myself and I know what it is. So to say that you can work, and on top of that, I'm in Florida where you have to drive.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much saying he can work, but he can't drive because of his condition. So how is he supposed to get to work? Oh, that's right. What, mommy's supposed to get him to work, so mommy's not supposed to be able to work?
Right.
So
you gotta give me something.
Give me something. Right. Where are the resources? Where is the information for the family who is dealing with this? Because when you're dealing with seizures, epilepsy, you're dealing with a life-threatening and a life-changing condition, not just for the person who has it, but for the caregiver.
Right. Because it's like 2 people having it in a sense. Even if one doesn't have it. Because the person who's dealing with it is dealing with it, and the person who has to care for that person dealing with it has to deal with it. And sometimes on a grander stage, because they have to sacrifice, like you said, you're not supposed to work, you're not supposed to care for your other child, you're not supposed to care for your house. You know, a lot of things go into play when it comes to epilepsy. And I think that it's phenomenal that you want to educate. And I say that to say I was just kind of looking through your stuff as you were speaking, and I wanted to just say this for the audience and people who are going to watch this back, because I think this is great what I'm reading here. So you have the word epilepsy spelled downwards. E is for educate. People need to be educated. Absolutely. P for persevere. Persevere through this difficult condition. I is inspire. You can inspire people in so many ways. L for love. We need to love one another through everything. Enlighten people to speak about it or to gain knowledge. Prosper. Be prosperous in all you do. Support. We need to support everything. Support one another through this. And why? Youth. The youth should be knowledgeable about this. It's so powerful that you have this, because I think it's something that once again creates attention, and that's what we're about. Like, I always tell people that I utilize the NFL as the primest example. A lot of people were upset, right, when Jay-Z decided that he was going to do work with the NFL. And but here's the thing. All the people at them table, they don't look like you and they don't look like me. They look like this. They look like this mouse. They white. And in order for us to make a change, we got to have a seat at the table. And that's what he said. Like, we got to have a seat here. So what do we do now? We got to bring attention and try and change it, right?
Right.
So, and that's the thing, because I would like to personally see this grow larger, because this is I've never ever in my life seen anything talking about this. Ever. Never. I've never seen it. There's, like I said, there's no month for it. There's no week for it. No one talks about it. And it's something that I would have never even thought to start. Honestly, it's something that, you know, you don't look at. And the thing is, there are groups. I'm looking at, hold on. I gotta find it again to make my point, because I went from that to something else. You got so many things here. And
Yeah.
so I lost it. Hold on, there it is. I'm looking at all these sponsors. Epilepsy Foundation. There's another one here, but it's so small. It's E&D Epilepsy Together, Epilepsy Foundation, Metro New York, you know, Catalyst Pharmaceuticals, Neurelis, CLC Group, you know, Montefiore, which my mother works for that company, Jazz Pharmaceuticals. I'm looking at all this stuff, looking at all these different sponsors, and there's people out here who have the information, who are talking about it, but yet someone who was within that doesn't know that.
Right.
That's a problem. So to me, it's kind of like, now you've gotten here. You've done it here. You're doing it here. Now it's, how do we make it bigger? How do we get more attention out there? Because it's important. It's important to you. It's become very important and personal to me. Just, you know, talking and getting ready, and you know, I enjoy our voice notes, you know, of just going back and forth about this event. But I just want to say, you know, how do we bring more attention to it? That's something to look into, because there are people who don't know, because the same thing, police officers should be educated in this, firemen, obviously, for the most part, you know, ambulance volunteers and EMT are, but, you know, it should be, you know, schools. There has to be a way to create this background and for this to get around the world. You know, having the one event and you're getting sponsors, and this will be your second year with sponsors, that's great, because that shows growth. So how do we get an event in New Jersey, right? How, you know, Connecticut, Massachusetts, you start with what's near us up here, you know, or hey, you can start, like you said, you did some stuff in Florida, you know, you just say, you could present, hey, I've done this in the Bronx, you know, I do this in June, maybe in October we can do this here, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
we have to do it in November, because November, and I learned this, it's funny you said that, because I didn't learn this until after I started this, that November is Epilepsy Awareness Month. Now it's also awareness month. I know what you're thinking. There's other causes for November that we hear about all the time. But nobody ever spoke about epilepsy. And, you know, here's another thing that I learned. Epilepsy is very common, and there's a strong connection between epilepsy and autism. 40% of people with autism have epilepsy or develop epilepsy after the autism, which is something that, I mean, that's something to look into, because this goes back to what I was saying before. There are other conditions out there that put you at risk for seizures. Not just epilepsy, seizures, because seizures are important to know about.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm not just about epilepsy anymore. I'm about, you don't know anybody with epilepsy, you don't have epilepsy, that's fine, but I guarantee you know somebody who's had a seizure, or you're gonna know somebody who's had a seizure. I guarantee
Absolutely.
you, you're going to come in contact with it. So you need to know what you're looking at, what you're going to do to help preserve that person's life and save their life. Because if you don't know, you're going to be like me, who didn't know anything with my own kid. And I'm not ashamed to say it, because if you don't know, you just don't know. But I'm the kind of person, I like to push
Right.
to find out things, which is why my advocacy is so strong, and why I choose to be a voice for people that don't have that strength. It's like we were saying earlier, you got to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
Right.
Okay? One of my weaknesses is public speaking.
Oh, geez.
It may not, it may
I'm
not come
horrified.
out like that. It may not come out like that, but it's not one of the things I enjoy doing, but as I start talking, I start to get I'm very passionate about what I do. Now, if I was speaking about something that I had no real connection with, it'd be a whole different personality you'll be getting out of me. But I love what I do, and I've learned the advocacy part. Let me explain to you some of the things that I accomplished. And this is not me saying this to gloat about it. I'm just saying the point that I'm getting when I tell you these two stories I'm going to tell you. The point that I'm getting to is, when there's a will, there's a way. I said on a prior show, I know how to be a real pain in the ass when I have to. So it's like, you're not going to like me, but you're going to respect me. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to take me for a joke when it comes to my child, or when it comes to anybody I care about that's dealing with something that may not have that oomph, so to speak. So one story. My son was going to a hospital, and fairly good hospital. It was a good hospital. And he was seeing a neurologist for a long time. And the neurologist was having a very hard time managing his seizures. So he said he needed to start seeing an epileptologist. Now, an epileptologist is a neurologist, but they specialize in just epilepsy. Okay. It's about a 2-year difference in medical school. So I did not feel that was going to help. My gut was kind of like, okay, this is just a political thing with the insurance. They just want to cover their behinds and feel like they're doing something. I liked his neurologist. I really felt like, even though this neurologist did not have the answer, I was pretty aware that there may not be a direct answer, and it was going to be a trial and error situation, but he genuinely cared for my son. And that's all I wanted, and I could work with it. But he said it himself. Once I've gone a number of years not being able to get this better, my hands are tied.
Right.
Okay. So I can't fight that. So we took him to an epileptologist. I did not like that doctor from the beginning. I could not place my reason. I'll be honest with you. I'm the type of person that I don't need a reason. It's the vibe that I get. I will get a vibe so strong with certain people that I know it's something, but eventually it's going to come out. So I didn't care for this doctor. One visit, I told her, she offered another medication.
Okay.
I think it was like medication number 12, 13, who knows. And I said, doctor, I'm really considering CBD oil. I learned about CBD oil through my events and other speakers. So she says, well, I don't think that's a good idea. And I'm like, why? She says, well, for one, it's very expensive. I said, I'm sorry. And you think I can't afford it because why? Because I'm from the Bronx and Puerto Rican and his father's Black. So we can't afford. Well, that's not your concern. As a matter of fact, can you answer me? How much is it? She's like, well, it could be over $300. I said, it could be, but you really don't know. But you're assuming that it's too expensive for my pocket. Okay. What's the other reason? Oh, well, the other reason is it hasn't really been proven to be effective. I said, doctor, with all due respect, nothing you have tried has been effective. So if you're not going to support me getting CBD oil to try for my son, I'm just going to get it somewhere else. So at that point, she steps out the room. I leave the room and I just left because I already saw my temper I was going to go off. I already didn't like her and she was giving me the reason why.
Exactly.
So we come back for another appointment, follow up. So for those who don't know, people who have epilepsy have to go for continuous doctor appointments. They have to keep getting their blood checked because the medications could cause liver and kidney issues. And you have to go into the hospital for video EEG monitoring for about 3 to 5 days. And that way they can they hook you up to an EEG to see if you're having the most seizure activity during certain activities. If you're having them during your sleep, you're at risk for SUDEP, which is sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. And some people having more towards video games, some when they're exercising. So that gives them an idea as to if you're improving in your seizure activity. The less seizure activity you're having, the less risk you are for having a seizure.
Absolutely.
So I come for an appointment. At that point, he was having seizures every week. She says, well, I need you to record a seizure. And I just looked at her. And she says, Miss Gibson, I'm speaking to you. I said, I'm trying not to say to you what's in my head right now out of respect. But how do you expect that I'm going to record his seizure? She says, well, you have a camera on your phone. I said, I also have a dial pad that I use for 911. So please enlighten me as to how you think I should record him having a seizure while I'm trying to save him from dying or hurting himself.
Right, because you're taking that time now to stop caring for him so that you can record. Those don't go together, because if you stop, he hits his head even worse, or twist his knee the wrong way, tears a ligament in his knee, tears a meniscus. Like, a lot of things can go wrong.
Wow. Homegirl, excuse my she said,
first on here.
well, you can use the camera on your phone. And I really wanted to be like, where did you get your degree? Because you're a dumbass. What? Okay. So I said, so let me ask you, what exactly is that going to prove?
Right.
What are you looking for in this recording? Here's where it is. Oh, well, he's been treated for seizures for a number of years, and no one has actually seen a seizure in him. So, there is something called psychogenic seizures where I said, oh, you mean the psychiatric seizures? Oh, there really are seizures. I said, no, doctor, listen, don't try to sugarcoat this, okay? Are there people with that? I'm sure there are. And if there are, I'm not diffusing what they go through. But You're pretty much telling me that you think he's having a seizure because he's tantruming? Because that's what that sounds like to me. You haven't seen it yourself, so you got to pass off some kind of diagnosis. And you have to fit your paperwork to where you can get paid. So that visit did not go very well. I called to try to get the doctor changed, and I couldn't get a new doctor until about 6 months to a year later. Okay.
Yeah.
So of course I was stuck. So we go back to the doctor again. She says, well, it's time for his video monitoring in the hospital. She says, now, were you able to get any kind of recording of his seizure? I said, no, and I'm not. So she says, well, we have to admit him. I said, for how long? She said 5 days. I said, okay. I want a bike in his room. And she said, for what? I said, so he can exercise. I said, if you're going to get paid for his stay here for 5 days and the hospital's getting paid, and you're sitting here questioning him having seizures because I won't pick up my phone to record one, I'm going to trigger a seizure. That was the hardest thing I had to do, Mike. That was the hardest thing I had to do. But I had to do it not to prove to her, not that to prove nothing to her. For him
Right.
to get the right diagnosis and the right treatment without you trying to pass this off as a psychiatric issue. Okay, because anytime, excuse me, but my son, both my children, I have a 14-year-old daughter. Look at me passing her, making her older. 14-year-old daughter who's been affected by this too. And my children are Puerto Rican and Haitian. So they're darker than me, lighter than their dad. So if you think you're going to use this as another, label an African American, a dark-skinned person with something psychiatric because you haven't seen something with your own eyes, we're going to trigger a seizure. So when he was in the hospital, I had his electronics hooked up to the hospital room so he can be on his electronics as much as I gave him permission. I said, Malik, guess what you get to do? What I never let you do. You get to play as long as you want. Don't even go to sleep. So he was up losing sleep. I was making sure he wasn't eating like a normal teenage boy would. I was making sure he was malnourished. And then on day 4, I got him on the bike. What do you think happened not even 2 minutes into the bike ride?
It was time.
It was time. And what do you think she said when she walked in the room? Oh, yes, he is definitely having seizures. No shit, Sherlock.
Do you think I don't know what I'm talking about?
I wish I was lying about this. So when I say that I bring my experience, the trials and tribulations that I had to go through to get him the proper treatment, to learn what comes with this illness, it was deep. And yes, I'm going to present it to everybody. If your child is having absence seizures and they're diagnosed with epilepsy, it's a very good chance they're going to turn to convulsions, especially when they hit that puberty age, which is why this is one of the topics at my event. I got to choose my topics. I gave a list of topics and the doctors choose which one they felt was best to address. My son needed to be in a special program because of his illness, because of the safety, because of his learning issues from the epilepsy. And he needed to be in a BOCES program. There were no BOCES programs in the Bronx. So I fought with Department of Education and got them to bus him every day to Riverview High School in Rockland.
Oh, wow.
For him to be every day, 45-minute bus ride to and from home. Wow. Him and his father and I worked together and figured it out. And I advocated. I went into DOE. I presented what I need to. And, this is everything, a lot of it is liability. And I get it. Because we all have to protect what we have and what we've worked for. But there's something called humbleness and compassion. And all it takes is that one person to just say, you know what? I can't do this, but this is what I can try to do.
Right.
And let me tell you, that was the best decision that we made. Having him in a BOCES, that school was fantastic. The environment and the way they dealt with the situation, it wasn't just him. BOCES, all the kids there had something going on. But it was very small classrooms. The staff knew they had a lot of students with seizures. He wasn't the only one. So they knew how to deal with it. They didn't put too much pressure or expectation. And that's what he needed in all the years of being in school. And now he's an adult. So now we're going through the transit. Now the challenges are more the transition from being a young adult into adulthood. Because, when you turn 18, you're legal. The only thing not legal to do is drink until you're 21. But when you're 18, now he has to sign for everything. I can't sign for him, even though he has no idea what he's signing for. And I don't know how to explain half the time. I just know what's best. So I'm like,
the mother in you.
Because, and here's another thing. There is a lack of awareness in awareness. And what I mean by that is usually a person has to look like something's wrong with them in order for people to think, okay, something's wrong with them. So I'm not going to treat them with any kind of expectation.
Yeah.
But when you have somebody with a condition like epilepsy and they look normal,
Yeah.
you know, he was 18, he looks normal, he speaks normal. So the expectation for him to understand things and for him to be able to process things and for him to be able to multitask, it's mind-boggling to me. I'm not blaming anybody, but it made me open my eyes to not looking at the cover of a person and thinking they're okay. You know,
Never judge a book by its cover.
never judge a book by its cover. I mean, and it goes to say for me too, as a parent dealing with this, it was very lonely. It was very lonely. I didn't have a personal life, and when I made decisions on my personal life, I made it with the basis of what was best for him and not what was best for me.
Right.
You know, I didn't have people saying, go take a break, I'll watch him. No, people weren't doing that because they were scared. They just didn't have the cojones to tell me that. But I knew what it was.
Right.
I know what it was. And, you know, just not having anybody to relate to what I was dealing with. There was times that it was constant hospital trips and he was in the hospital and nobody was even saying, and when I say nobody, I'm saying that I needed more help than just my mom or the one or two people that did.
Right.
You needed someone to say, you know what, Tara, let me take your daughter. Let me do her hair for school. Let me feed her dinner. Help with my daughter. Like she's still here. She's dealing with this too.
Right.
Or you know what? Let me come visit you and let's go have some coffee and just talk. Just cry. No. I had to suck it up and I had to be like, you know, I had no kind of, I was on survivor mode.
You had no kind of support system for you. You had to focus all your energy in being a support system for him. No one said anything to you. Even taking your daughter would have been a help because even so, it's not supporting you directly, it's supporting you indirectly and her because I'm sure there were times where you felt that you had to neglect her, not on purpose, not because you didn't love her love her differently or loved her less, but because that she wasn't in the same condition that you had to give more time and energy to him. And you know, in tune, it could really affect your relationship with her. It could affect stuff for her growing up because it's tough going through that when you don't understand as a kids don't understand or have the wherewithal to say, well, my brother is sick, mom has to do this or dad has to do this, and I get less or I don't get this or that. It's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but sometimes it's sad because that's just, I think people don't think about the whole picture, and sometimes you can only see certain stuff. I've gone through that. I can only see a certain way or a certain thing. Right. And it's hard. However, you got through it. I know you're still dealing with it and he's doing well. Yeah. But you've gotten through it. Mm-hmm. And you are succeeding and you are stronger now because of it.
Right.
And he is stronger and he will understand that mom did everything she could and she did everything in her power to make sure that I was taken care of, that I was understanding, that I have an understand of how to treat this condition moving forward, because you're not always going to be there. It's plain and simple. Like, you're not always going to be there. And I'm not sure of his condition on if he can live on his own. But if that is the case at some point in time, he's got to know how to manage it, because not everyone, like me personally, I outgrew them. I stopped having them. 12 was the last time I had one. I'm 37 now. So, I haven't had one in a long time. Not everyone can outgrow him because you did say before he's not allowed to drive. So, that's a
Yeah, I
scary.
mean, the states are all different in their laws, but I mean, the reality is these are some of the challenges that come with epilepsy transitioning into adulthood, working, driving, relationships,
Yeah.
intimacy, for the first time. How will that affect? Because it affects, I just had, there's a show that I do every month on the Wake Up Everybody Network. And the last show that we had, we spoke about intimacy and epilepsy. And the triggers for seizures are equivalent to what the body goes through during intimacy. So that's a world that people don't really talk about, but we had a show on that, and it was some really good information that I had researched on that. And we're actually having a part 2 June 18th, but I have the show every month, and it's a particular topic towards epilepsy and what I advocate for. With having independence and having your own place, to be honest with you, people with epilepsy normally can, if they have the safety measures that they need to have independence. Unfortunately, things like a service dog, which is a huge, huge benefit for someone with seizures, it's over $10,000.
Wow.
It's over $10,000
For a dog.
for a dog. That these dogs are trained to sense when a seizure is going to happen. They guard the person before they fall and hurt themselves. They alert for help. It's a particular bark that they do, and it's very loud. I mean, I actually seen one for the first time in the school out here. There was a student, she had seizures. She had her service dog with her. That dog could sense a seizure coming before it hit.
Wow.
Is incredible. But again, over $10,000. Hospital beds to secure the person from falling out the bed, an alarm to go off if it senses a seizure. These things all cost a lot of money. So if there's resources in place to help the person, they definitely can be independent, unless it's just so out of control that there's damage to the point that that's something different. But we come a long way. My son is now supporting this big time. There was a point that he was in his young testosterone stage, and the ego, and he was like, I'm not gonna, I don't know why you're doing this, and I'm embarrassed. And now he's gonna be doing, he was at the last event doing interviews, so everybody, all the media outlets that were out there, he's supporting now big time, because he's learned that he could have it worse too.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited. I think this event is going to be the biggest one of all. It's projected. I would love it. There are plenty of ways to support. It's a fundraiser. And the point of the fundraising is not for a cure, because there's no cure to epilepsy.
Right.
The point of the fundraiser is so I can provide more and more programs to help other people, to advocate for other families, and to spread awareness everywhere I possibly can. Everything costs money.
Of course.
There's no way I can do it. Right now I don't even have money for storage, because again, it's a non-for-profit. It's a very new non-for-profit. We don't have income coming in. So I don't have a place for storage for all my stuff that I keep ordering. My house is a mess right now, so I gotta but it's for me to provide this, the events, for me to provide awareness programs everywhere I possibly can, I do need to fundraise. So now, listen, this is how simple it could be. I have myself 5,000 friends on Facebook. Do I know all of them? Hell no. I bet you I don't even see half of them. But anyways, if every single person on my page donated $5, I would have enough for 2 years of programs every month.
Wow.
I did the math. I'm like, wait, I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking you to support something as simple as $5. And that's with everybody. Like, you can give more, But
if you can give $5.
You can give $5. Come on. I mean, I'm not wealthy. I'm a struggling woman, but you know, I got $5.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Yeah, I just did the math too.
right. That's how simple it is. You know, non-monetary, we need food for the event. So, you know, if you want to donate, whether it be finger food, whatever you do, you cater and you want to donate a tray of food, there's always something for someone to do.
Case of water, like
anything, right? Exactly. It's not even just about the monetary part. It's just the support, because we need stuff. You know, it could be someone that has a printing company. I need shirts. I need certificates printed. You want to donate the 25 t-shirts that I need made up for all the staff who are volunteering their time to work this event. You know, that are setting up with me Friday night, plus coming in all day Saturday to work the event itself.
Well, I'll tell you, next year I'm sure I'll be in a better spot to do a little more. Because
what you're doing,
I'd like to be more involved going forward with this event for sure.
No, but what not to cut you off, Mike, but what you're doing is support. And it's more in the few weeks that I've known you than some people I've known my whole life that have known what I've been going through. And they're real quick to say, "Oh, you're doing good. I'm glad okay, so well, where are you at with the support?"
Right.
I don't need my ego stroked. I don't need that. I need you to help me accomplish this. And I'm not asking for much. Shout out to all the media outlets that are coming out. This weekend, the flyers are going to be coming out for the performers and the testimonial speakers.
Okay.
I have testimonial speakers who are brave enough to speak on living with epilepsy or having a child. I have new people speaking.
Myself included.
Yourself included. I have new performers that I've connected with, and they're going to be, I wish I could take everybody. I have people waiting to see if they could perform. I would love to take everybody, but there's going to be more events. It's going to be June 28th, just to run it down, because I know time is pressing now. June 28th, Saturday, 1 to 6 p.m. The earlier you come, the better. There's 5 hours of entertainment, speaking, raffles. I have started one raffle, and another one is starting. It's a music raffle where it's $5 a ticket, and it's music related. So that's already starting now. We're going to have a 50-50 at the event. We have our sponsors there. We have vendors that are going to be there, all new vendors for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We got the popcorn and cotton candy machine, and we got we have a lot of stuff going on. I'm still having people reach out, and you want to have food. So that's one thing that we can use, donations for. And anybody who wants to make a donation, I don't know if you want me to say it here, if you want me to send you the flyer that you can post it.
No, you can say it and still send it. Either way. Go ahead.
Very simple. Most people have Cash App. Seize the Cure, $ Seize the Cure, SEIZETHECURE. That's the Cash App. You could also use Zelle, which is the same thing, Seize the Cure, LLC. And then if you need to reach out to me, TJ Vita, you can call my cell, 347-797-8938. Please text me first so I know who you are, because if I don't, I will not respond. Or you can email, which is Seize the Cure, SEIZETHECURE, the number 4, epilepsy, that's EPILEPSY @gmail.com. And that's pretty much it. I think I said everything. Did I forget anything about that event on this Saturday?
That was great. I appreciate you coming on. We got to talk. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I didn't even write notes because I felt like this was gonna just organically go wherever it was meant to go.
Yeah.
Typically I have a book of notes when I do these, and then when I do them in person, I do them on my phone. But I've just felt like we just had a way. It was gonna go where it was gonna take us. It was gonna go where it was gonna take us. So
yeah, I was telling you, I work better organic anyway. So yeah.
So this is a little bit of a different episode. So I usually end each episode with two things.
Okay.
One is usually the first is tell everyone something about you they don't know. But you just really were like an open book there. So, and you're gonna need another one for a future episode later.
Okay.
So if you don't want to name one now, if you don't have two, that's fine.
No, I actually do have something many people don't know, and I'm very proud to say this. I have my master's degree in forensic psychology.
Wow.
I am going to be going back for my doctorate. I had started going back for my doctorate, and I did the last Seize the Cure event, which I needed to focus on. But I've taken too long of a break now, so I'm gonna get back on that and get my doctorate degree in forensic psych.
Oh, okay. That's what's up. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Dr. Gibson.
Yeah, I was just about to say, eventually I'm gonna be Dr. Gibson.
I had to think. I was like, wait a minute, two names. I gotta pick the right one.
Yeah, well, Dr. Gibson or whatever name when I get married down the line, I'm gonna have that Dr. Vito.
There you go. That's what I almost said.
Oh, one more thing I want to mention.
Yep.
Anyone, if you want to find me, TJ Vida, VIDA, on Instagram as well as on Facebook. And we also have a Seize the Cure page on Facebook and Instagram. Same thing, Seize the Cure.
And you have a Seize the Cure page on TikTok as well.
My daughter started it for this event. I have to send her a whole bunch of videos. Yours is one of them. All the drops. She has to start posting everything. That's her work for the event. So
there you go. Work it.
So
last but not least, before we get out of here, is just a positive ending message. It's something that's positive and uplifting for you to say to the audience or who may watch this back. The floor is yours.
My positive message is take any negative situation and make it a positive. There's always a way. No matter what you go through, it's a test. You have one or two choices. You either going to fall victim to it, or you're gonna be a soldier to it.
Well, you can't get no better than that. Can't be no easier than that. I thank you for your time. I'm sure we'll be in contact, of course. Mm-hmm. And I will be there on the 28th, me and my media team, the COC network. And I want to thank everyone who's tuned in. This is I missed an episode. So this was supposed to be episode 21, but this is actually episode 20 of season 2. There's another episode that's going to be virtual on Tuesday, and then the finale is Wednesday. So I thank everyone for their time. I thank everyone for their support. We will be back here next week 2 times. Then we take a couple weeks off, and then we're starting with season 3. So I want to thank you, TJ Vida, for your time. Thank you for the audience. Everyone have a good night. And like I always say, be better than you were yesterday, but be prepared tomorrow to be better than you are today.
Good. Peace. Like that one.
Thank you.